You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Just a heads up, this episode is brought to you by the Script Summit Screenplay Contest, where you can win a cash prize or even a contract with a Hollywood talent manager. All you have to do is visit scriptsummit.com for more info. All right, welcome to the Successful Screenwriter Podcast. On this episode, I am joined by a guest host as we analyze and break down a film to discover what works and what doesn't. Welcome to the podcast. On this episode, I have the fantastic Kristy Leigh Lussier.
Yay!
Yay. All right, we are going to do a breakdown of Gretel and Hansel, which was a pretty cool horror film that came out not too long ago. And we're going to kind of break down the film and talk about what we like, what we don't like, maybe any fixes that we thought the script or film could have. And we also have live here on the Facebook community in our Script Summit Writers Group. So if anybody is interested in hopping on here and asking us any questions or making any comments, we'd be happy to interact with you. All right, Kristy. Well, thank you for being with us.
Well, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, all right, first thoughts on Gretel and Hansel. What do you think?
First thoughts?
Yeah.
Cinematically, it's just stunning. That's probably one of the most beautifully shot cinematography wise films that I've seen in a long time.
It really is. I agree. And the color palette they use, did you notice how they use a yellow, like a thick yellow all the time, almost like an amber? So things looked warm and calm, but almost sickly too. I kind of noticed that.
Right. There's this good, cool juxtaposition between that yellowish tone that you even saw.
Yeah.
Really kind of almost centered around Gretel most of the time. But
Right.
Then when you introduce the witch character or they're out in the forest, you're either going to get these really deep, dark blues, almost violet black, or red.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it really sets the mood and tone. And what made me think about that was, this is vaguely familiar to The Witch, right? The Witch is a fantastic film. It's vaguely familiar, but the visual display of color tones, things so different, but it really works, I think, with this film to set the tone, and then the creepy music, right?
Yeah, of course.
So what did you think about the overall story itself? Because there was a few subplots in there. Thematically, it was pretty obvious what they were talking about. They were talking about no gift comes for free, right? Every gift has a price. So we automatically know what the theme is, which is fine. Thank you for that, right?
Yes.
But what do you think of the way they used that throughout the story? Because it really is pretty interesting.
That's really kind of interesting that you bring that up, because obviously it's supposed to be kind of a take on the original fairy tale. And which, these kids in the forest, and then they find this house and the witch gives them these treats, but not at the price of their own life, because obviously she's there eating children. So, yay. But it's really interesting, because even the opening sequences, and what's really funny, and to divide off right here, it feels like the first 20 to 25 minutes was almost its own kind of story itself, where it felt like it could have even been directed by somebody else.
Yes.
And then that as you slip into that act 2 per se, it takes on this whole new twist. And so in the beginning, it feels like she's just really trying to survive or keep her brother alive, and doesn't really realizes she has to step up in this role of sacrifice in order for her to do that.
I think you're right. And I think it kind of, like the first act, it felt like filler, right? It felt like we're just trying to get to the good stuff. Let's get to the old hag's house. Let's find out what the hell's going to happen.
Right.
And I felt that when the kids were eating mushrooms and tripping out in the woods, and I was like, what's going on here? Why are we doing this?
It's like Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, this
right?
isn't necessary. Yeah. But at the same time, I understand why they're doing it, because they want to build up these two kids. They want you to see what they're going through, the struggles and everything, and the love that she has for her brother, and how much she cares and respects his sister. So they are able to do that. It does work, but at the same time, you're kind of chomping at the bit. You're like, you want, like, where is this house? You know, like,
Yes.
you can't wait for it to happen. Yeah. I thought
Right,
that was
right.
good. The other thing that I thought was really interesting was the fact that mom wanted to kill the kids and force them out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to get your take on this, because this is what I think, and I want to see what you think. Is that because, now, guys, this is spoiler alerts, okay? We're breaking the film down, so if you haven't seen it yet, so be it. So Gretel has this dark power, right, that witches have.
Right.
And Hulda, the evil witch that she lives with, her character's name is Hulda, wants her to eventually eat her brother, because that's what's tying her down. And by doing that, she will become this pure evil, because that's what Hulda did. Now, if this is a bloodline thing, and Gretel's mom wants to kill the kids and chop them up, was Gretel's mom fighting the urge to become a witch? That's what I want to know, because I thought that was interesting.
I think it's two ways. You could either go that direction with it, which the clue in the film, if you go back and watch it again, because I've watched it a couple of times, is the window in the sequence where she's sitting with her mom at the table before her mom tries to axe her.
Okay.
The window in the back is the same exact window as the window in the witch's house.
Oh, wow.
So that was one of the keys where I was like, that's the same window.
That's probably deliberate. Yeah.
That was a deliberate. But on the other hand, is it her mom trying to not necessarily eat them for her own, like to kind of avoid doing that, but is it her mom really trying to lift the veil almost on how reality really is? Because she mentioned something about, you know, this is what you think is whatever. I can't remember what
right.
Exactly
well,
said.
that she can't protect her kids. And I mean, because at first watch, you think this lady's just has an undiagnosed mental disorder.
Oh, for
you
sure.
know, and it's 1600s or whatever. So obviously there's not enough like weeds or mushrooms she can eat in the forest to take care of that disorder. So, you know, okay, that's what's going on. Tough luck. You know, dad's dead. Can't rely on that. So these kids are out in the woods.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's interesting that in the screenplay and in the film, they leave that open to interpretation, which is awesome, because that is so hard to get right in a script.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is. But I think that if you it's a very thin line to tread, because you don't want to necessarily rely too much on will visually make that happen.
Right.
Because you don't want the audience, you want the audience to be able to at least decipher enough without them having to figure it out like it's a jigsaw puzzle per se. But then you don't want to full on just write it in the script, because the director could come by or come on and really literally
change it,
not make that clear in the film.
Yeah. And not, or even understand it.
Right.
The other thing I found was risky, but it paid off, was the fact that they opened the story with the fable of the little girl, the beautiful girl. Because I've seen scripts or even films do that, and it just it's a hot mess. It doesn't work out because nobody knows what to follow. But I think by doing it, they were able to suggest, you know, is Gretel the little girl? Is Hulda the witch the little girl? Like, we don't know who the little girl is. And I think that works because they layer in a level of mystery. I think otherwise, I think that could have just really fell flat.
Here's where I think it works, because we also already have this association that we're going to get told a fairy tale type story. So to open it that way, for me, was a natural feeling of this is probably the beginning.
Yeah.
And I liked it. I really,
That's smart. That's a brilliant take on it. Absolutely.
Because it's a fairy tale. We know it is that. So start the film as that. I really had a struggle with a lot of the voiceover throughout. I don't feel like a lot of the voiceover throughout was that necessary. Almost to me, that was the part that fell flat.
I agree with you. It was inconsistent. Sometimes we'll get scripts that come in and writers will do a voiceover here, a voiceover there, or the occasional flashback. The problem is if you don't build it in regularly in the story, the viewer kind of forgets that it was there.
Yeah.
And so then when they see the voiceover, it actually pulls them out of the script or out of the film. And then they're reminded that they're watching a movie. And I agree with you. I don't think the voiceover was necessary, especially in the ending. I think in the ending, that could have been a silent moment with the ghosts of the kids coming out and disappearing. We all would have known what that meant.
Right. We clearly knew what was happening. Yeah,
we clearly knew what was happening. We saw that she was at one with nature. And then when her fingers turn black, you go, oh, okay, what does that mean? But we don't need an explanation, right? No. I think they even had her visually dressed in a lighter color. Like she almost looked angelic.
It was interesting because that was throughout the film too. Again, there's a lot of shots where and it was a lot of straight on, obviously, kind of shot. And that was intentional, I believe. But there were a lot of times that you could notice that it almost clearly looked like she had a halo over her head.
Yeah.
So they were trying to set up this dichotomy between good and evil. And I think that was at the end.
No, I think you're right. I think they hit that with the lighting. And then the other cool thing is when they play chess. And she pays a lot of attention to that queen. Right. The white piece. And then at the end of the film, she almost looks like that white piece. So I thought that was really cool. Yeah,
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. Awesome. It was a cool callback. And so it's showing like she's come into her power, literally, right? Most powerful piece on the board. And then what is she going to do with it? I don't know. And that's the beautiful thing about that ending. Maybe she'll be okay, or maybe she's eating kids next week. Who knows? But it's still a great story, and I'm just happy that her little brother made it at this point.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that she didn't eat him or he didn't die. Spoilers, sorry.
No, it's fine. All right, so do we have any comments from the group?
I don't see any so far, but it looks like we've got some people watching. So if they want to ask something or jump in with their own interpretation or comment on it.
All right, I see one just popped up. All right, Steve says he loves the ratio of the Scandinavian influence of look and style. And it really was. If you looked at the way that house was, it was very Scandinavian with the high peaks and the other thing was it also reminded me how they kept using triangular shapes.
Triangle, yeah.
Right, for like corners of a pentagram.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And you saw it everywhere from the beginning where they have the story with the enchantress with the creepy lady with the long nails whose fingers weren't black, and I couldn't figure that out. But she had some sick nails going on. But she was sitting inside of a pyramid, like a triangle, and then they worked that everywhere you could see. There was always in the windows or anything like that. I think just visually reminding you, like, hey, these dudes are witches. Yeah, which I think really works out.
And her hat too. The hat. I mean, we associate the witch's hat with having that point, with seeing the triangle, and they really did a good job of doing that with the costuming.
I totally, I didn't even think about that, but you're absolutely right. And how about Alice Krieg's performance as Hulda? Holy crap! She
steals the film. Like, to
me,
my
God. Mm-hmm. So good. I mean, so she played the Borg Queen, right? Which is an awesome Star Trek villain. But
for any Trekkies out there.
Yeah, right. And so having her play the character and just watching how she would play off of Gretel's lines. And there was a moment in the film where Gretel is able to draw the staff. So she draws the staff. And then if you see Alice Krieg's reaction as that character, it's bliss and horror at the same time. Sure. It's like she's excited and threatened. I was like, oh my God, it's so brilliant.
It was so good. It was so good. It's such a good scene.
It is.
And the scene where she sits across from her when Gretel made her the tea which
Oh,
she
yeah.
clearly knows what tea it is, but there's this whole exchange that it's the same thing.
Yeah,
where
down
she's
the
really
hatch.
trying to, yeah, exactly. And
Is
it was
she
just
gonna
great.
drink it? Oh yeah, she drinks it. Then she's like, "It's pretty good, nice balance."
Pretty good.
No,
Yeah.
no,
Nice try.
no effect. Yeah. Oh, it's awesome. And listening to them talk about poison and just watching her character slowly try and worm her way into Gretel to manipulate her,
Right.
as this wicked mentor to like, you're gonna eat your brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so crazy.
But here's what I think is interesting too. And I've thought this both times that I saw the film, but then obviously thinking back to the fairy tale, but then the time that it's supposed to be set in, which I'm assuming is during some phase of the Black Plague.
I have no idea.
Famine.
Yeah, maybe.
That's kind of the feeling that I get. But the fact that it's one thing that we know in the fairy tale, she boils the children and eats them.
Right.
But this one was so, I don't want to say gory, but it really went to the core
It's a horror film for sure.
like consumption of flesh, and the fact that these kids are absolutely just starving because of the life that they've just come from.
Yeah, because they're poor, because they don't have any resources, they're hungry. I mean, at one point early in their film, she was openly potentially having to be a prostitute for a lord of a house just to feed the family, and she said no, which was awesome because you immediately empathize and sympathize for that character, and then putting on her responsibility for her little brother. Right. I mean, you're just behind this girl, which is fantastic. There were some subplots that weren't going anywhere, right? So there were some setups. You had Hansel and the axe, and Hansel and the saw and the shed. That didn't go anywhere. It was awesome setup. You're thinking, all right, this kid's going to go in this shed and find bodies hanging upside down or something.
Or kill himself or whatever.
Yeah. Or something's going to happen with the shed. Nothing. I was like, what? Why is this in the, so I was frustrated by that because it's a really cool setup, and, Hulda's there and she's teaching him how to sharpen a blade, and she talks about the shed. And so you think this is where she does her business, is in the shed. No, it's in the basement.
Yeah, which is so interesting. Yeah. I'm glad that you said Hansel, because he's the one that, and no kind of knock to the actor, but I feel like his character was almost just a prop, really, or kind of an element to drive the story. So for her, it's taking care of my brother, and here's the connection I have with my brother. And then later on, you're right, he is the symbol of how he can be overtaken, essentially.
He's the heart plot for Gretel, no question. Right. But they tried to work in a subplot of power with him. Which it was kind of working. So Gretel is about a young woman coming into her power as she becomes a woman, right? I mean, so she ends up through menstruation and all that stuff, right?
Right.
So Hansel, of course, you're going to do the opposite. You're going to try and do a subplot of somebody who's losing power, doesn't have power. So like, he can't cut trees down with the axe. He doesn't know how to sharpen an axe.
Right. He's weak.
Stuff.
Yeah.
He's weak. He's little, right? It just didn't sell the way I was hoping it would sell. But, eventually she takes him out in the woods, and that's it.
Yeah. Or he's, somewhere floating around in a basement. Who knows?
Right. We all float under here. So, wrong movie. We'll do that one someday, I'm sure. So,
same actress, wrong movie.
Yeah, that is the same actress, isn't it? Yeah, that was. She was killer in that one too. So, what did you think of the young Hulda, that the actress playing that witch?
Oh, well, I mean, obviously she was beautiful.
Yeah.
I still feel like, and I don't know if it's because it was, again, she's really just trying to change her visual so that she doesn't appear to Gretel in that first basement sequence.
Yeah.
As Gretel would recognize her. So of course she's going to take her younger form, but it almost feels like it's this, where she's kind of trying to hang on to a youth element as well.
Right.
She's still trying to be young.
Well, I don't know, because at one point she says she took on the guise of an old woman in order to seem feeble and draw children in. So
Right.
it's murky, but I thought the way they introduced the young Hulda was great, because you see the blood drain out of the pipe.
Oh yeah, right.
And then you see her step out of the puddle. It's really cool scene. And then the puddle becomes her dress. And then she's decked out in all these, I don't know, like evil tattoos and stuff. It's pretty cool. But I thought it was pretty awesome. I thought it was a good intro. And the actress itself did a good job. She's been on some stuff like on the Arrow show and stuff like that. But all right, so Steve says the title is backwards of the fable. She basically says in the beginning, he follows me everywhere and he's mine. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, Gretel is the star of the film, so it is her story. So they make her lead in the title so everybody understands, like, this is what's going on.
This is about her for sure. Yeah.
Did you find this film scary? Did you ever jump?
There was never a jump moment, but it's that, which I love about these kinds of films. It's really establishing this uncomfortability, and you're just freaked out the whole time. Atmosphere. You're just on edge the whole time. And to me, that brings out more fear in me when I'm watching a film versus the jump scares.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was creeped out the whole time. You're uncomfortable. You just.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the food looked delicious and it looked disgusting.
Well, it looked delicious to start, but then as time went on, it started to turn black.
Oh, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. Probably because she's seeing through the veil. The veil of the, because when when she does that thing where she puts all the body parts on the table and then an arm, and then she casts a spell and it all turns into food. I was like, that was the coolest, grossest thing I've ever seen.
I know. Actually, it's when she goes out in the forest and she throws up in the dirt. I still just like, oh.
Yeah, totally. So gross. I can't
do it, but I know why.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, that was cool stuff. So the, what did I wanted to say? I wanted to say, with the magic element of it, I liked that it was, they were using parts of nature, right? So she would go outside and she could almost like talk to the trees in this weird kind of worky way. And the trees were drawn to her, which I thought was really cool.
Right.
And so when you see that at the end of the movie, she's like talking to the trees again, but they still leave you in this weird spot where you don't know if they're into her, or if they're not, and you don't know if she's going to kill anybody. So I don't know. I think it's pretty good.
I think it's using that your spirituality to connect to nature. But I do like the elements of the witch explaining how the things in nature, down to the seeds and the plants that we use, those are what kind of create that energy for magic. And I really thought that was better than just, hey, I have magic powers.
It's magic. No, I mean, it had to be hard to write that too, and even kind of figure out a good way to explain it.
Right.
So for me, I'm a sucker for audible jump scares. I'll zone into a film so much. So they do that. They calm you down, and then you hit like a big scream section where the little girl walks by and it always gets me. And they did rock a few of those, and I was like, really? But they were doing it and working on that little girl thing and trying to weave her into the story more. And you think, because this happens so much with a little girl, there is going to be more to it.
Sure.
But eventually you just kind of find out, she probably died in the woods.
Yeah. That I wonder that too. I'm just like, what happened to her? Did her mom come kill her? Like, I don't know. We don't know. We don't know, because the last we saw her, she was the one leading these children into the hole.
Right.
And then now her mom's got the house on top of that hole.
Yeah.
So where'd she go?
And it's a nice red herring, because you think that Hulda is the little girl, but then Hulda's like, nope, that's her mom. And you go, okay. And then
where the heck is she?
Yeah.
Did you eat her?
I'm assuming.
She's
a hungry chick. So the ending wise, I felt the ending was quick. I thought the ending could have been drawn out a little bit more. She's young Hulda at this point, young witch, and she's gonna have Hansel go up and then basically get barbecued in this like open pit, which was
jump off and sacrifice himself.
Yeah, like instead of the oven, right? This was more like an open fire pit. But
right,
it's fine. It's visually look cool. And Gretel's fighting her, and then eventually is able to like decapitate this chick with her own staff. And I thought it was fast. I wanted her to be just a little more drawn out, but I wanted
more of a battle. I mean, if this witch is as powerful as we have been led to believe, how almost just too easy it is that a young witch can outsmart her by the moves that she makes, the maneuvers that she makes. I mean, how did she not sense that magic was happening?
Yeah, and I guess they're just trying to say that Gretel is that powerful. That's the only excuse I could give them.
Right.
But the other thing is, what'd you think of her last line of dialogue?
What was the last line of dialogue?
She says, "What a world."
Oh, yeah.
And what are they calling back to that? They're calling back to the Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz.
What a world, what a world.
I didn't even put that together.
I was like, oh, I think it kind of cheapens the death. I don't know.
I didn't even click that in my brain. Oh my gosh, you just pointed something out.
Right? Missed. When the witch hit with the bucket of water, she goes, "What a world," and she, melts. And so I was like, I mean, okay. I understand why they did it. But it was pretty crazy. So what do you think this script could have used or film?
Honestly, I mean, visually stunning.
Beautiful.
The performances were great. I feel like it was overall kind of a smart business decision, honestly.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty much 3 actors in a single setting, essentially.
That's true. It is pretty bare.
And very, enough to kind of really create a creepy story. I really wish that I had more of an emotional connection to Gretel, or had more of a really fearing for her or fearing for Hansel. And it just wasn't there. It was, she's the protagonist and you want her to eventually win, but there was a lacking of
stakes,
a connection. A connection from an audience member to that character.
I think you're right. You're never worried about Gretel. You're never worried about her. You're never worried about her safety. You're never worried about her getting, Hulda deciding, I'm just going to eat this chick too. You're never worried about that. Hansel, I feel the stakes are there, but Alice Krieg plays it so low. That it's just subtle. Like she just sniffs his hair here, plucks a piece of his hair there. So it's very subtle, she's not like kneading her fingers going, you're going to be quite delicious. Instead she'll sniff his hair and be like, you're such a handsome boy, so it's just, I think that kind of subtle kind of terror kind of builds up for that character. And I think that's what they were trying to use the shed for, was a way to bump up the stakes even more. It just doesn't go anywhere. I think there's just no payoff for it. But I think you're right. It could have been interesting if there was a little bit more stakes on Gretel's life, where Hulda was like, if you don't do this, you're going to die. I mean, that could have been a really interesting to test Gretel's self-preservation versus the love of her brother.
Sure. Yes, exactly. That's actually a good point.
Yeah, I think that is interesting. I mean, I recommend the movie. I think people should watch it. I really enjoyed it. Nothing is perfect. No. And so it's easy to sit here and criticize. And we know that.
Nitpick.
We know that. But this is why we did it. It's just so that you can learn from anything. And for me, this stuff is a lot of fun. I always love chatting about this stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting to even know kind of from a screenwriting background, like how it translates, and when you see something on paper to how it even looks on screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really cool.
And I think you're right. It was a good decision to only have a handful of actors to keep the budget down.
So
and
minimal.
It's almost one location, really. I mean,
pretty much.
minus Act 1, where they're going through the woods, and then there's a couple of houses they go to, and some weird cemetery thing with a zombie. I don't know what that was about. But, outside of that, there was pretty much a single location and just a handful of actors. But man, I mean, I never got bored, which is hard to do in a virtually contained film. I mean, it's hard, but it had me. I was just like, oh, this is interesting. Oh,
it was just so it visually draws you in that you.
Yeah.
I was visually mesmerized enough.
Absolutely.
Stick through it for me. Are there any more questions?
Oh, so Steve McLaren comments, what a world was redundant throughout whenever something went bad for her. I don't remember hearing it throughout the film, but maybe that was there, and that was just a phrase that she said. But that's interesting. All right, well, I think that's all we've got for today, unless you have anything else.
No, just I mean, if anybody's interested in watching just a really like good, just creepy horror flick kind of feel, this is a good one to pick.
I would agree. Then I would say it's almost like a horror light. You know, it's not overly scary, and it's not too, I guess, off-putting. You know, if you're not into scary movies, it would be a good intro if you wanted to see if you like something scary. If you're really into scares and you like the creep factor of it, definitely with like body parts turning into food, all that weird stuff.
It's a slow start, but it works. Yeah. It works.
Totally. Yeah. Slow start. All right. Well, I think that that'll be it for this episode. So if anybody's interested, the Successful Screenwriter podcast is out. We're doing 1 to 2 episodes weekly. And also, if you're interested in submitting to the Script Summit Screenplay Contest, now is the time, because we have a deadline coming up on the 14th.
On the 14th, Valentine's Day.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share in your social media, where you can tag us at The Successful Screenwriter.